So to begin, I first needed to get the information from the API. To do that, I took the link from the API, as you can see here, and I stored it in a variable called URL. And with that variable, I used requests from the requests library to get the information from that link. But for this specific API, it has different pages. It has 4 for the specific section that I wanted to retrieve. So I tried to use a for loop, as you can see here, with x being the page number for the URL. But unfortunately, it's an error that I couldn't fix. Something was happening in this line here that I couldn't understand, and I tried to search online and I tried to ask around on how to fix the error, but it wasn't working. So instead, I used I took each page manually using a with open file, and I appended it all in a JSON file, as you can see here. So each page is here, each of the 4 pages are here, and I just stored it inside so I can access it locally instead. Alright, so for my program, I created 4 different functions. The first one here is called OpenBook. So when this function is called, the book will essentially open. So it destroys the first frame that you see, and it displays the next. And here, the next one is called spell button with the parameter of index. So this function displays a spell and its information. So in my application, when a spell is clicked, it's a button. So when it's clicked, it will display the information about that spell. And this is basically the function that does that. So it sets a frame called info frame, and inside the info frame is where all the information is stored, right? So here we have a if-else statement. It's a nested if-else statement. So what this does basically is it removes redundancy, because if you'd look here, let me show you. So for every spell, there's a name, an incantation, key, right? But not all spells have an incantation. And when if it does, let's say here. So if it does, it has this kind of incantation and then the way you pronounce it, right? So what I ended up doing is I have an if-else statement to check if there is an incantation and if there is a name. And if those 2 are equal, then it will split for example here, there's the name Alarte Ascendere. So if the name is equal to this part of the incantation, it will split that and it will just print this instead with the pronunciation without the parenthesis, right? And if it doesn't have an incantation, it will just print the name. And if it has both incantation and it's not equal, like for example this one, the amplifying charm, it will display the name and this incantation and the way it's pronounced. Alright, so moving on, we have the different widgets that display the information. As you can see here, this again, like I said, it's a continuation from the previous if-else statement. So this one checks if the spell name, which is basically this this part, and if it's equal to the name, which is this part. So if it's not, then it will display both, right? Okay, so moving on to the next functions, we have the final two, which are basically the same. It just has one minor difference. So previous page and next page switches between pages either before or after the current page you're on. So if you're clicking the previous one, it will check if it's greater than 0. Yeah. And if it's greater than 0, then it will deduct 1 from its value, from its current value, and display that page instead. And if it is 0, then nothing will happen, because there's nothing that accounts for that situation. And here, if the page is less than 15, it will keep adding. It will add 1, to the value, and then switch to that page. All right. So below that, I initialize the root window here. There's the title. I set the size to 611 by 800, and I set it so that it's non-resizable. I also set some font sizes here so that I don't have to type it over and over again. There's also, all right. So here, I set the image for the main background. So basically the page looking image, I set it here. I set it first here because everything under that will be in front of it. So we don't need to see it just yet. And we need it to be at the very back anyways. So I just place it here, and it was called in the previous, in one of the functions. In 2 functions, I believe. All right. So after that, I created an empty list so that I can store each page that I make inside. So here under that, under the empty list, we have this section. So as you can see here, I opened the JSON file, again, this one. I opened the JSON file as read, and once the file is loaded, this for loop is called. Okay. So basically this for loop accounts for each page and what each page contains. For P in range 16, so from 0 to 16, it creates a frame and appends it to the list, again this one. So each page will be placed in the list. All right. And after that, inside the for loop, we have another for loop, which is nested this time. So this accounts for the items in each page. So there's 20 spells in each page. To make that fit inside one page, I made it so that there's 10 rows and 2 columns. So there's 10, 10, right? And I'll show you how that looks once we run the program later on. But essentially here, it makes 2 columns and 10 rows. So each row has a button, has 2 buttons. So, because there's 2 columns. So each row has 2 buttons, and those buttons contain the index, contain the name of each spell. And to get the index, we use this formula right here. So basically what this does is it counts the spell index continuously. So let's visualize that. Okay, so row, everything starts at 0, right? So it's 0 plus 0 times 20 plus 0 times 20, 10. So index will equal to 0. So what that does here, since index is equal to 0, and we're looking for the name, it will print text for the first spell name here in the JSON file, right? So as that goes on, it goes 0 plus, so row will now be 1. 1 plus 0 times 20 plus 0 times 10. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11, 12 until 20. And then the next page, it's 21, 22, 23 until 40, and so on. All right. So under that, after this for loop, there's a button for previous and next that are printed along with the frame, so that each page can have a button that the user can press to switch between pages. All right. Then here I initialize the first page, as you can see here. So I set the current page to 0, and I put it here again so that it will be under everything here. So it's not seen just yet. It will be seen once these ones are destroyed. So these two widgets here, they are the cover page and the button with the cover page. The cover page, as you can see here, I used pillow, the pillow library, and on top of that image we have the button, and once that button is clicked, these two widgets are destroyed so that this will be seen. All right, and then I use the main loop function so that my program can be run. All right, let's just wait for it. Here it is. All right. So this is my application. So this is the cover page and the button as we just discussed. So once it's clicked, it's destroyed, and we see the first page. Now, as you can see here, we have a list of spells. So there's 10 here and 10 here. So there's 20, 10 rows, 2 columns. All right. So for the if-else statement that I mentioned here in this function, this one. So basically, let's say we choose a spell. Let's say, again, the Amplifying Charm. So if it has both, if both exists, but are not equal, then it will print both. And as you can see, the pronunciation is here on the side, and the incantation is there, right? But for example, this one, this spell, it doesn't have a name, but it has an incantation. I mean, the name is equal, the name is equal to the incantation, so it's not printed to avoid redundancy. And as you can see, the information about the spell is also here. But for example, we have, this one. So it has a name, but it doesn't have an incantation. So it just prints the name, but this time it's here. All right, so basically that's it. The user can check all the spells that exist in the Harry Potter universe, and once they're done, they can just exit the app. All right.